You know the feeling, right? The day is finally over, you're tucked in bed, you are so ready for sleep. But your brain, it has other plans. All of a sudden, it's replaying conversations, stressing about tomorrow, analyzing every little thing. It's an incredibly common and frustrating problem. But what if you had a toolkit to actually quiet that noise? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive into the science of why this happens and look at some practical tools you can use, starting tonight.
It's a great question, isn't it? It seriously feels like our brains are actively working against us just when we need them to quiet down the most. But it turns out there's some really fascinating science behind why that off switch feels so broken. So, to figure out the solution, we've got to understand the problem first. Let's start by scouting out the culprits. What is actually going on in our brains and our bodies that creates this perfect storm for overthinking at night?
Okay, so what's really going on here? Well, during the day, your brain is busy processing everything coming at you. But at night, when all those distractions disappear, all that mental energy just turns inward. On top of that, your prefrontal cortex, that's the planning and problem-solving part of your brain, can actually become more active. And then you mix in a little stress, which can mess with your hormones and make you feel wide awake, and boom, you've got the perfect recipe for a brain that just will not quit. It's this perfect storm. Your brain has nothing else to do, its problem-solving engine is all revved up, and your body is on high alert. No wonder it feels impossible to switch off. Now, a key player in this whole nighttime drama is something called rumination. This is when your mind gets stuck in a loop, just replaying something from the past. A mistake you made, an awkward comment, you name it. And this impulse, it actually comes from a good place. Our brains evolved to replay bad stuff so we could learn from it. But at 2 in the morning, this useful feature turns into a bug, trapping us in a cycle of bad feelings instead of helping us find any real solution. And right alongside rumination is its future-focused cousin, worry. So if rumination is your mind getting stuck on the past, worry is your mind getting stuck trying to solve problems that haven't even happened yet. This is your brain's inner planner just working overtime trying to prepare you for threats. The problem is, it can't tell the difference between a real, actual threats and, a possibly awkward meeting tomorrow. So it just spins out all of these endless what-if scenarios. And this is a really crucial point. Not all this repetitive thinking is bad. The goal is not to have a completely empty mind. I mean, constructive thinking, like planning your day or actually trying to solve a problem, can be super helpful. The trick isn't to stop thinking altogether, but to learn how to steer your brain away from those unhelpful loops of rumination and worry and maybe point it towards something a little more productive. All right, so how do we actually do that? How do we make that shift? This brings us to our first major tool set, and it's all about building a whole new foundation for sleep. We're going to look at a really powerful set of strategies called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI for short. And honestly, it's considered the gold standard, the most effective long-term treatment we have. And the science totally backs this up. I mean, look at this quote from researchers. Study after study shows that CBTI is often way more effective than sleeping pills, mainly because the benefits actually last. It's all about changing your habits and your thoughts for good, not just putting a Band-Aid on the problem for one night. The entire approach, the whole thing really boils down to this one simple, powerful idea. For a lot of us, our bed has become a place where we toss and turn, where we worry, where we get frustrated. The goal of CBTI is to break that connection. It's about retraining your brain to see your bed as a place for just one thing: restful sleep. One of the core parts of CBTI is called stimulus control, and it's built on these 4 simple but they are non-negotiable rules. Now, number 3 is the one that people find the toughest, but it is also the most powerful. If you're not falling asleep, you have to get out of bed. This is what breaks the cycle of your brain associating your bed with being awake and anxious. It feels so counterintuitive at first, I know, but it is incredibly effective at rewiring that brain association we just talked about. Another really powerful and, admittedly, another counterintuitive technique is called sleep restriction. And it all starts with this simple calculation: your sleep efficiency. You just figure out how much time you're actually asleep versus how much time you're just laying there in bed. So, for example, if you spend 8 hours in bed, but you only sleep for 6 of them, you divide 6 by 8, multiply by 100, and you get a sleep efficiency of 75%. So the idea here is to temporarily limit your time in bed to roughly the amount of time you're actually sleeping. Now, I know that sounds scary, like, won't that just make me more tired? And yeah, at first it might. But what it does is it builds up this powerful, natural drive for sleep, kind of like charging up a battery. So when you do get into bed, your body is primed and ready to fall asleep and stay asleep. It makes your sleep way more consolidated and efficient, and it just reinforces that crucial idea. My bed is for sleeping. Okay, so those behavioral changes are great for the long run. But what about when you're lying there tonight and your brain is just going a mile a minute? Let's look at a fantastic little mental trick designed for that exact moment. It's called cognitive shuffling. This is so important. Trying to force your thoughts to stop usually just makes them shout louder. Like when someone tells you, don't think about a pink elephant. Cognitive shuffling works differently. It's all about giving your mind something else to do, something totally random, a little boring, and completely disconnected from your worries. You're not fighting your brain. You're just gently redirecting it. So here's how you do it. Just pick a simple, neutral word, like pencil. Then for each letter, you think of another word, and just briefly picture it. P is for pear. Okay, got it. E is for elephant. N is for necklace. The images are totally unrelated, right? That process actually mimics the random, nonsensical thoughts we have as we're drifting into sleep. The key is to not try too hard. The goal isn't to be some perfect visual artist. It's just to give that busy part of your brain a gentle, meaningless little task. And hey, if your mind wanders away from the exercise, perfect. That's exactly what you want it to do. You're literally boring yourself to sleep. Okay, so we've covered behavioral changes, we've covered a mental trick, but let's talk for a minute about some of that standard advice we always hear, like creating a totally silent, dark room. Because for some people, that advice can actually make things worse. And this is especially true for some neurodivergent brains. The typical advice, right, is to make your room as quiet and dark as you possibly can. But for some brains, especially those with ADHD, total silence isn't calming, it's a vacuum. An understimulated brain will just rush to fill that quiet by creating its own stimulation, which usually comes in the form of, you guessed it, racing thoughts and anxieties. It actually needs a little bit of external input to regulate itself and find some calm. And this slide just illustrates the difference perfectly. For these brains, that TV show you've seen 100 times or that calming podcast you like, it isn't a distraction, it's an anchor. It gives your mind just enough to hold on to so that it doesn't have to spin out of control with its own thoughts. It's really all about finding what soothes your unique nervous system. And there are so many other tools you can explore. Weighted blankets are amazing. They provide this deep pressure that can be incredibly calming, kind of like a good hug. An engaging audiobook or even a simple repetitive video game can act as a gentle off-ramp for your brain, a bridge from the busy day to the quiet you need for sleep. It's all about finding your personal flavor of gentle engagement. So we have covered a lot of ground here, but the goal is not to overwhelm you, it's to empower you. Think of these strategies not as some rigid program you have to follow perfectly, but as a toolkit that you can just draw from. First up, you have the rewire. This is your long-term strategy. You're using those rules of CBTI to fundamentally change your relationship with your bed and with sleep itself. It definitely takes commitment, but the payoff is a real, lasting peace of mind at night. Second, you've got the derail. This is your immediate, in-the-moment fix. When your thoughts are just spinning out of control tonight, you can use cognitive shuffling to gently flip a switch and guide your brain onto a completely different, more sleep-friendly track. And third, you have the stimulation tool. If you have a hunch that a totally quiet room is actually part of your problem, give yourself permission to experiment. Try a podcast, an audiobook, some white noise, and just see if giving your brain a little anchor helps it finally quiet down. Listening to all this is one thing, but actually putting these tools into practice is what makes the real difference. So as you head to bed tonight, don't just hope for a quiet mind. Choose a tool to help you create one. Which one is it going to be?